Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
What's up, guys? And welcome again. Welcome back to the Tone Lounge Podcast. My name is Frank. I'm your host, and I'm coming to you live from Cologne in Germany. And on the other end of the Atlantic, somewhere in the middle of, he's going to tell us in a few moments where, the Duke of Voxington, Jonathan Gilmet, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a warm applause. Although we can't hear, the applause, we appreciate it. So, this is an episode that is probably going to be titled, Catching Up, because it's the first episode that we are recording in quite a while, due to several reasons. One of them being you had to relocate, or re-relocate in a way. So why don't you start telling us a little bit about that?
Yes. So from the beginning, when I moved to Belgium, that we knew it was going to be like a temporary thing. So about 4 years. And I'm originally from Canada, so we had to come back. The place we chose is Edmonton, which I wouldn't say I regret, but let's just say it's special. It's very special.
How so?
I don't know. Where do I begin? Homeless people all over the place. People tweaking out on fentanyl on street corners. It's a big city, right? It's not like a small town or anything. But Canada in the 4 years I was gone has changed quite significantly. I still have a lot of people that are still worried about COVID, so they still have the masks and they still somewhat force themselves to be into social distancing and all that, which is very different from Europe, where it was way more relaxed on that stuff. They were still going by the rule, but they weren't as imposed as it is here in Canada. So we come back here, we can tell people are kind of demoralized. It's going to take some getting used to. It's really not what I expected when I came here. But at least on a personal level, there's a lot of music stores. There's a lot of musicians. So I can start selling stuff. I can, go to the music store, see some gear, because I couldn't really do that in Belgium. Only had one music store locally. So it's I didn't want to come back, to be honest. I really didn't want to come back to Canada. But now that I'm here, I'm trying to make the best of it. So I can't complain too much. I got a house. My kids are all doing good. So that's the long and short of it. But why it took, on my end, a long time to get back to the podcast had to do with the fact that the furniture left Belgium on the day that you remember when there was that big issue with Microsoft for 24 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So because everything is computerized, our stuff got delayed for a week.
Oh.
And it took almost 3 months for me to receive my shit.
Holy shit. 3 months?
So, almost 3 months. So, because we left in June, and we got our stuff at almost September. I think it was the first week of September.
But you just shoved all that stuff into a container, right? And then...
all that stuff went into a container, but that container got delayed. And then on top of that, when it got to Montreal, where the main port is, the people from the CN, so CN is basically the Canadian Railway, they went on strike for I don't know how many weeks. So shit just kept piling on top of one another. So I had time to renovate the house, paint everything, get everything sorted out. We were sitting in the house, there was no furniture. We're I just hope we have news next week. So it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. So the podcast would have kept going if I could have had, my furniture in time, but because everything was so fucking stupid and it seemed like the gods were against me kind of thing. I was okay, well, whenever we're settled and we both have time, we'll start doing it again. So on my end, everything is fixed. So, we can start filming again.
We can start moving forward. And talking about moving forward, there was not a low amount of people who actually wrote us or commented on the length of some of the episodes, and I was like, I was reflecting on it, and I thought a lot of the arguments they came up with, they're actually pretty valid. We used to do, like we said, we'll always keep it under 2 hours, and sometimes we managed to do it, and other times we didn't. We surely did not when we had a guest, because then one thing leads to another, and then we had guests who had a lot to tell about their work and whatnot. And yeah, but 2 hours is quite a long time. And a lot of people said that, hey, I'm listening to the podcast, on the way to work, and I have an hour to drive or something, and I'm kind of getting lost on the way back. I kind of lost the red line, So a lot of people suggested, hey, just keep it under an hour and just record more material. This way it's like easier to digest, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So announcing, like, moving forward, that we are going to keep the episodes under an hour, and we are going to record episodes that are news related. We used to kind of look at news articles and dissect them and kind of discuss the topics of those articles, and then we would move on to the main topic. So those episodes we are going to record separately and just focus on like ongoing news. And we hope that you guys enjoy that new format. We certainly have seen that the numbers on YouTube have been going on, thanks to everyone who subscribed to the channel. We passed the 700 subscriber mark, which is great, and some of those videos were doing quite well. And those those short snippets, we did those pretty much to make it easier for people to digest certain topics, and maybe we don't have to do that anymore. Maybe you don't have to dissect all of it. We do just 2 or 3 clips, because if the episode is just like under an hour, I think it's going to be easier to kind of digest and kind of build the episode into your daily routine or something, whether you're in the gym.
There's also some people that address the length, and I gave them individually some tips, but I'm just going to say it to anyone that's listening, especially if you just listen to podcasts, like let's say with Spotify, you don't really need my advice. But for those listening on YouTube and they're watching it and they're like, hey man, it's really long. The cool thing about YouTube is that if you stop a video, let's say at 23 minutes and 12 seconds, you can come back 6 months later and it picks it up right there.
That's true. So if you logged in with your account.
So with your account. So you don't have to worry about like trying to catch up or starting from scratch. It's going to take off from where you stopped the last time, which is one of the beauties of YouTube. So yeah, if you're listening to it in chunks, you can do that. Sometimes I listen to podcasts that are like 3-4 hours long, and it takes me like 2-3 weeks here and there where I have time to listen to it. And that's what I do. It's just like, if I got 15 minutes, I just listen to it. I come back later and I just take off from where I was last time. So that's another way to do it. But we are trying to, minimize the time. But when we have guests though, we kind of go with their schedule and how much you want to talk. Like, let's say we're talking to, I don't know, Frank Falbo. If he's talking about something, we're not going to cut him off and say, look, dude, people can only take an hour. Like, we're not going to do that.
And those and those episodes are going to be the exception to the rule, where whenever we have a guest, we can't promise that we are going to keep it under an hour, simply because that we have some guests that have like a long history in the industry and in their respective work. So, and sometimes things just, keep moving. Yeah. And it's impossible to say, we reached the hour, bye-bye. It would be rude and disrespectful to those people that, take the time to, make it to the podcast and everything. And usually most of them are very prepared. So, so that's what we're doing moving forward. Another thing in terms of housekeeping, I still have not heard from the two people that we announced as the winners of the giveaway pedals.
Yep.
And I'm kind of wondering if, I don't know, do we have to put it in a newspaper or something? Or, if you check our last episode, the beginning of our last episode, the one that we recorded with Henning Pauli, please do that. If you're a subscriber to the channel on YouTube, go to that episode and please check if you are one of the two chosen ones to receive one of the giveaway pedals. One of them is a limited edition Wallow, pink Wallow. The other one is an Arc of Tone, also like one color, it's like a grayish sort of color.
Yep.
So please go to the episode and see if you've won. And if you have, I don't even remember the names, so long ago. If you have, then please reach out to us so we can take care about the shipping and everything. I guess that's it in terms of housekeeping. Oh, damn. In the meantime, a lot of shit has happened, man. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
but all very recently. So when you took off to Canada and you were searching for a house, buying a house, and like trying to set up shop and whatnot, the summer was actually pretty quiet for the most part. I was just doing my job. I thought we would have a great summer, and we had sometimes. The weird thing about this summer in Europe was inside the week, the weather was great, and as soon as the weekend came, rain, but coming out of stupid buckets. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen Germany that green, in summer. No, normally you go to the park and everything's burned, It's like because of the sun.
Shit.
and the grass is dry and like kind of, brownish and whatnot because it's like so sunburned. Everything was green. It's like, and super intense green because it has rained so much. Like unbelievable. And then, so I recently lost my main job, which was kind of a bummer. I mean, it's always a bummer if you lose your job, but this particular case was especially shitty. And just a short disclaimer, I'm not going to name the company I was working for because I wasn't the only one getting kicked from the job on that day. Quite a few people. And the people who know me personally, they know which company I'm talking about. So I was on a vacation in Catalonia, and I was walking the streets of Barcelona with my son and my wife, and we were like looking for a place to eat. And suddenly, I get a message from my boss, like, "Hey, would you be able to attend a meeting later?" And I was like, "The hell? She knows I'm on vacation. I would. What can be so important?" Yeah, changes in the company. And I was like, "Oh, changes in the company doesn't sound good." So I said, "Well, send me an invite and I'll see if I can make it." And it was like late enough due to the time difference. Companies located in the US, so that I was able to make it. And on the way, so I was in the metro, and on the way, I was trying to talk to some of my colleagues. We had a chat tool, and asked me, like, "Do you know what's going on?" I was like, what's going to happen? And my chat tool didn't even work for me anymore. It's like it was already shut down. And that was the moment I knew, it was like, okay, this time it's going to be me. And 40 other poor souls. This is quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, definitely. And since it's a job in the MI industry, and the MI industry is not doing well right now, there is a certain connection. But in the end, it has to do with, it's also, so the head company is a public company, so that the stock market, and it's the old game, people who have like lots of stock, like heavy investors, they want their returns, and usually returns come out of growth. And if there's no growth, the money has to come from somewhere, and usually it comes from the bucket where all the employees are getting paid out of. And it's the shitty thing is it was my first day on vacation, so it kind of ruined.
So
it
not
was
at the end.
No,
first fucking day.
Yeah, we arrive in Barcelona like super late. We get up the next day. We walk around the city, and suddenly this happens. And it kind of ruined the vacation in a way, because instead of enjoying the time, I had to talk to my lawyer and kind of get a better deal on an exit package and whatnot. So ruined the vacation for all of us. So that was the shitty part. Apart from the shock, obviously, that you're gonna come back from your vacation and you're out of a job.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
Not great. And I think I'm not that terribly sad anymore. The only thing that is kind of sad that in that position, and I had 7 really great years at that company, and it meant a lot of security for my family and everything. So that was great. I have nothing to complain here, but I also had a lot of positive impact on a lot of people that I really care about. And those people are kind of on their own now. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I'm still a little bit sad about, but that's life.
So what you're saying basically is that you have some new opportunities that may be presented at some point.
So yeah, that would be the next thing. So I had originally not planned to go to Guitar Summit this year because it was super close with coming back from vacation in the middle of the night, because a very late flight out of Barcelona, and then having a day to kind of get all stuff in order, and then next morning, going to Mannheim to the show. But in the light of, there might be job opportunities there, and there might be people out there that you can talk to and kind of get a frequency of what their plans are for the next year. That was something, and obviously then it was nice to see people, see Chris from Jupiter Effects, who was there, and everybody else, the entire crew. So I had a couple of really great conversations at the show. By the way, the show was, you went there last year. The show was even more packed.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
It was, it's you remember the Friday, right? You were there on Friday and Saturday, as far as I recall.
Yep.
And the Friday was okay, there was, people floating around. But the Saturday, I think you remember the Saturday, was absolutely packed with
insane.
people. It was absolutely insane. That's how Friday and Saturday were. both days. It was absolutely insane. Never have I seen so many people on that Friday. And I kind of, they said, and just from the feeling that I had, they said never have in one single day, which was the Saturday, so many people entered the show in just one day. Absolutely insane.
I've noticed something. So if you don't mind, we could, because you were there for an entire day and I couldn't go this year.
Yeah.
I've noticed that, remember many podcasts back, we were very critical of the fact that when we went, there was barely any coverage from YouTubers.
Yeah.
And it seems like this year they listened and there were many YouTubers that were prominent there.
Yes.
And that seems to have brought a much more positive impact for Guitar Summit, because you had Endertons that was there.
Mm.
You had, obviously, the Guitar Geek. Andy was there last year, but he was doing even more stuff this year. Yeah. So it seems to me I don't know if it's correlated to our podcast, because our podcast is really small, or if it's just at large, many people complain about the fact that there weren't any YouTubers there to cover the event, but I know that my YouTube feed was filled with Guitar Summit stuff this year.
Yeah.
Did you notice that yourself when you were there?
Yes. So I saw a ton of more people, whether prominent or not, but with cameras. So there was more of, and we weren't the only one to kind of criticize that specific part. You know, it's not like we criticized the show. We said,
No.
you know, this is a show where, you know, people hope for maximum exposure of their stuff. That's why they go there.
Yeah.
And obviously one portion of it is people going there, people attending the show, seeing your stuff, talking to you. Maybe also it seems like on Friday there were more dealers. So you had more dealers attending the show, which is same thing, you know, good for the business of the people who are like displaying at the show. But this last part where the exposure, you know, coming through YouTube and what other platforms, you know, Instagram, was kind of short last year. That was completely different. I think they did a lot. I think they did a lot to attract it, to make it attractive for YouTubers. I don't know exactly what they did. I have no clue if, you know, they invested money or they got an agreement with the hotel and they were able to, you know, provide the hotel and whatnot. I'm not sure what they did. Or maybe they involved some of the companies, like some of the bigger companies, you know, hey, maybe we can come to an agreement as far as expenses go. And I have no clue what they did. But I'm kind of eager to find out. So maybe, just maybe, we can manage to get someone from their organization committee on the podcast. And we just asked them.
That'd be cool.
It's like, hey, we saw a lot of changes this year. How did you manage to pull it off? You know, would be interesting to find out.
So I know that Andy, the Guitar Geek, he went this year, so we could perhaps get him to come on the podcast again, so we can ask him some questions about that. Because I mean, he's been to NAMM, now he's been to Guitar Summit, so I'd be curious to see like how both organizations approached it in their last conference, how they approached it differently than maybe the years before. Because I saw like one of the really beneficial things that comes out of a convention like this is, for example, Paul Flatley from Flatley Pedals, he's got his pedals now going to Enderton's because Enderton's went to his booth. They tried out his stuff and they were like, hey, we're both British. Well, why aren't we dealing with each other kind of deal, right? So
exactly.
Now he's going to have, and he's got like fantastic pedals. So it's well-deserved, but if it wouldn't have been for this, it would have been really hard for Paul to actually get to meet, you know, the guys over at Enderton's. Just because the fact, I mean, these guys are huge. They have a lot of reach. There's a lot of people probably trying to get their stuff at their store. So, I mean, a convention like that really does expose the smaller companies to the larger distributors, which is a smart move. And that's really the point of this, right? It's not just selling directly to people like you and I. It's also selling in stores so that you can have a little bit more volume here. Yeah. So, yeah,
it's true.
And well thought out thing.
It's interesting. I mean, this has been the 7th edition of the show. The 6th edition, if we count out the year that it didn't take place because of COVID, or maybe it's the 5th edition because it was 2 years of COVID and they did it again in 2022. So it was 2 years without. Anyways, but it's 7 years that you know, these like. It has been established over the course of 7 years. And I know for a fact, because he passed me by, Bob Taylor from Taylor Guitars, he was there. And I kind of have a feeling we're going to see a Taylor booth next year at the show. You know, he wanted to kind of go there and kind of get a whiff of, you know, what the show is all about. The bosses of several large distributors came there personally this year because before that, they've, you know, their employees were like, hey, we have to go to the show. It's the biggest in Europe right now. We have to be present. And the bosses were like, how much does it cost? XYZ. Okay, yeah, go. So they went. But I think a lot of these guys are now like curious. Okay, what is it all about? What is it about Guitar Summit? And I want to see for myself. So you saw a lot of these guys walking around and, checking what's happening. And I kind of have a feeling that because it means something. It means something if the CEO of a company goes there himself to check the thing. Usually, on the weekend, you stay at home, you stay in your nice little villa, and you enjoy cheese and wine with friends. But this year they actually went to the show themselves, which means something, and it's good and it's positive. And so, and for me it was good as well. Meeting people, and obviously talking to people who might be planning to extend their staff in the next year.
Did you meet anyone exciting?
Did I meet anyone exciting? I met Danish Pete.
Very cool.
That was nice, and I exchanged a few words with him, and that was really nice. He didn't have that much time because obviously they were there to capture like as much content as possible. So they went to a ton of booth, and they also did interviews at one of the stages. So the distribution of the show was a bit different this year, but so they were able to fit more booth, but also it was, to my understanding, it was a lot more mixed. Obviously, you had some areas that were exclusive to certain types of instruments, simply for the fact that there's going to be a different vibe. The acoustic guitars with the acoustic guitars, etc., etc. But so Danish Pete, I said hello and crossed path with a lot of people that are somewhat famous, but I didn't have that much time to check stuff out, like at all.
You just had the one day, right?
I just went there the Friday. I stayed the Saturday until like 1:ish, something like that, because I had to go back. I had daddy duties on Saturday, but it was nice. And it was in the evening. I was out with the guys from Jupiter Effects and Codex Audio and Barclay Guitars, and just having a good time.
Did Chris Jupiter tell you about his new addiction to maple syrup?
He did not.
He did not.
He did not. But
the story behind that is that many months ago, I was on Facebook and I was asking, does anyone have like a spare DiMarzio Super Distortion? So he wrote to me. He's like, yeah, I have one. I'll send you one, and maybe we can trade or something. So I sent him a list of like all the pedals I had, and nothing in there interested him. And he's like, okay, look, he's like, okay, look, if you have anything that's like from your country that I haven't tried before, just send it to me and we'll call it, fair and square. So I was like, okay. So $50. He praised the pickup at about $50. I was like, okay, I'm going to send him some stuff. He says he likes sweets. I'll send him. So I sent him this big box, dude, filled with like cookies that are maple flavored, candies that are maple flavored. I send him like a big bottle of maple syrup. Anyways, I filled the box up. It was more than 50, but I didn't give a shit. It was like, if he likes it, he's gonna love it, and if he hates it, he's gonna throw everything out, right? So he writes back to me just a short message. He says, "Maple syrup has changed our lives."
Oh
like,
no!
How so? He's like, "Oh man, it's good on everything." Like, there you go. Reason to like Canada: maple syrup and then bacon. Canadian bacon.
Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
What's special about Canadian bacon?
I think it's just the cut, because anything seems to be called bacon. Like There's bacon. When I was in Europe, a lot of time it just tasted like ham. But basically, Canadian bacon is like a shit ton of fat and this little sliver of meat on it. So that's in Belgium. They didn't have any fucking bacon. Like, I spent 4 years being so goddamn miserable. I would order. Let's say I went to the restaurant. I would order a breakfast. They would say, "Oh, you want some bacon?" "Yeah, I want bacon." I'm like, "This is not bacon. It's fucking ham. What is this? You need Canadian bacon." So,
okay. That's okay. Yeah, I'm getting the image now. So essentially, it's the other way around, where you want the flavor from the fat and some of the flavor of the meat in your case, while in a lot of, especially European countries, it's the other way around. There's either a 50-50 thing or there's like a 60-40 thing, but it's usually more meat. Like in Spain, for example, like Serrano ham, jamon serrano, which we bought in large amounts because it's, and when you're in Barcelona, is the chance to buy it, and they vacuumize it for you, so it's like completely safe, and you can keep it in the fridge for weeks and months. Doesn't change a thing. It's actually the other way around. And then they have this other funny thing, so it's essentially pork, that they like, pork meat that they eat, but it comes from pigs who live at an altitude like pretty high up.
Okay.
I'd say around 2,000 meters. I don't know how much that translates into feet, but it's 2 kilometers. It's like 2 kilometers up in the mountains, and the only thing they eat is nuts, walnuts, hazelnuts, that kind of stuff. They don't eat anything else, and that gives the meat like a special flavor. And I've had a few times where I had the chance to test this, like properly prepared. Oh
yeah,
it's like butter, man.
I swear that's one of the big differences. Like, if anyone wonders, Canada or even like North America versus Europe, or even versus South America and Central America, North American food isn't that great. Like, we don't have anything besides like hamburgers, hot dogs, fast food. Oh, sure, we got a fuck ton of it, but like really great food is really hard to come by. We found one place here in Edmonton where the food is good, and it's an Indian restaurant called Namaste. They make amazing food, but that's where we have to go, because otherwise it's Wendy's, Harvey's, Arby's, McDonald's, A&W.
That's terrible. Okay,
I'm fat, but I like to eat good food, not just junk food, right?
Damn.
In Europe, I was well served. Over here,
that's the thing, and that's why I understood what you said in the beginning. It's like that you didn't want to go back, and I guess one of the things is like, as soon as people, and I've heard a million examples, right? As soon as people kind of get into that sort of European lifestyle regarding food, regarding culture, regarding, you fly for an hour, you're in a different country, or you fly for 2 hours, you're in a different country, different culture, different people, different language, and obviously different food. And that does not seem to be the case in North America. Like, at all.
Well, I think the biggest like food difference you may see is with the Americans, because like, if you go to Louisiana, they're going to have like Cajun style food. If you go somewhere else, they're going to have like, they all have their little thing. But in Canada, we do have a difference in food, but it's more of a family tradition kind of thing. It's not so much in consumerism. So you're not going to go like get shepherd's pie out of a restaurant that is going to be reflective of where you live. It's going to be more like fast food, pizzas, spaghetti, stuff like that. While Europe, I found anyways, while I lived there, if you have pizza in Belgium or you have it in Germany, they have some similarities, but if you go to Italy, it's completely fucking different. It's not the same thing at all, right?
No.
It's like blows your mind. But then like the more like typical pizzas you would get out of Belgium, they're 100 times better than the fucking pizzas we have here in Edmonton. I can tell you that. So Canadian pizzas are more Americanized.
Okay.
So there's not much in terms of variety of meats you're going to put on there and the different cheeses and stuff like that. Cheese is so fucking expensive here. Mozzarella is seen like, like
Gold.
Gouda. Yeah, it's gold, basically, right? Which is fucking stupid, but over here, the food is just lesser quality and you have less variety and it is fucking expensive. And this, if we tie this into, I guess, music, the prices on gear is absolutely nuts. Like the prices here in Canada are fucking outrageous.
That's the reason for that is because you have map pricing. We don't have that in Europe. That's one of the biggest differences. And I know that some industries over here, they want it and it would do them well, like our industry, for example. If we had map pricing, you wouldn't see that many businesses go out of business, like bankrupt. We just had, we had a year of stores closing.
Yep.
And I've heard at Guitar Summit that in like a shop in Nuremberg, so in Bavaria, in the south of Germany, a shop called BTM Guitars is about to close as well. Like a store that has been there for like, I don't know what, 20, 25, 30 years. Like really great team, people who know what they're talking about. Very good inventory. They also incorporated used stuff and whatnot. But it seems like the two owners, they just don't want it anymore. And then they were so that's the chatter I heard at Guitar Summit. Apparently, some of the employees were like, "Well, we can take over. Let's get together. Let's take it over, and let's continue it." They went to the banks with a business plan. When the banks saw the margins, they were like, "Yeah, we can't give you any money. This is a hobby." With these figures, this is a hobby. This is not a sustainable business. And you see that a lot. You just see it a lot. And I don't understand why some businesses, have you heard of Gear for Music once? You probably have, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's investor-based operation. So you have a group of investors who think it's a great idea to invest in an industry, in a store, that has margins that are like, you can't, how they pay for all this stuff and how they think they'll ever get returns is a mystery to me. Now, on your end, you have map pricing, which means everybody has the same price, and you have like 2 or 3 periods in a year where they lower the price in correspondence and communication with the suppliers. Some of them take part in it, some don't. But they have to allow it. So if if Keeley Electronics, for example, if Keeley pedals say, sure, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you can lower the prices at 15 or 20%. You're allowed to do that, but they can't do that throughout the rest of the year. What happens inside the store is a different story. If you go to the store, it's like, hey, can you give me a discount? And they give you a 5% or even a 10%, that's a different story. But the advertising price always has to be on par.
Yep.
So
you can't like be looking at, let's say, Fender American Stratocaster, like let's say the Professional 2. You can't be looking at it at a certain price on one wall, brand new, and go to another store and they sell it for $800 less. That doesn't happen.
No.
Like they're going to be at relatively the same price depending on the year of the guitar, whether it's used, it's a floor demo. Those things will have an impact on the price. But at large, they're going to be the same price. And that's the thing that really threw me off coming back here is I'm at Long and McQuaid. So those who are not Canadian don't know, Long and McQuaid is the biggest store chain in Canada, the biggest retailer. So I'm in one of the Edmonton shops. I think they have like 5 here in town. So I'm in one of them. I'm looking at all the pedals they have for sale. There is a brand new JHS Morning Glory and a Dunlop like mini fuzz face for the same fucking price. $248 both. I'm like, I've been looking at these 2 pedals for a long time and they weren't the same price at all. Like the Dunlop was way more affordable.
Yes.
But they're the same fucking price. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at a Behringer, the SF300, the Super Fuzz.
Yeah.
That fucker is like $49. Like $49? That's like a $20 pedal at max when I was in Europe.
Yeah.
Everything has gone up. Everything has gone up. I wanted to buy a Dan Electro. I forget the model, just like one with the lipstick pickups there.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like when I was in Europe, I was looking at Thomann. They were like 500 euros. Over here, it's $1,000 Canadian.
What?
I'm like, I'm not spending $1,000 on a $500 fucking guitar. No way. So those prices have gone up. And what I've noticed is that on the used market, the prices are going up too. Like dramatically. Yes. Everyone wants the best fucking amount of money for whatever gear they're selling, and the gear doesn't sell. So I don't know. It's kind of like, those Mexican standoff where everyone is like pointing a gun at each other, and if you pull the trigger, everyone's fucked. Well, that's what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. Because the used stores, not the used stores, but the used market is stupid, and the brand new stuff is not affordable. Like I'm looking at a Vox AC15 for $1,000. I paid like $799 for mine. So how did it go up? Nothing changed. They didn't change the speaker. They didn't change anything to it. It's the same fucking amp. So the only thing I can see is this is an impact of inflation. And it just keeps going up and up.
Yeah, so inflation definitely plays one part in it. And the pandemic definitely has to do with the inflation because governments pumped so much money into the system during the pandemic to kind of fill up holes and to sometimes even rescue entire industries from like going out of business. I mean, if the German state wouldn't have rescued Lufthansa, they would be dead now. They pumped a lot of money into Lufthansa. I think like, I don't know, €500 million for Lufthansa to survive, because it is, I'm not even sure they got like part ownership or something, which would be the least that they could get. Get like a nice stock share package or something. No, they just pump money into it because it's the biggest German airline. A lot of it has to do with inflation. Some of it has to do with the fact that production, the cost of production has been going up. The cost of material has been going up, and I think the cost for transport was very high at some point, but it kind of flattened out or even went down. And if I look at the prices for some of the like day-to-day things here, like for example, during the pandemic, or just short after the pandemic, like gasoline prices were exploding here. Now it's even lower than it was before the pandemic. So it's actually not that bad. And but yeah, a lot of a few factors definitely had an impact on pricing. And if I look at, like you mentioned Fender, they recently released the Fender Player 2 series, and I look at the price and I'm like, are you out of your mind? A Player 2 for like almost 800 euros. Who's going to pay 800 euros for this?
Well, that's another.
It's another question. Yeah, but
thing. Yeah, that's the thing with Fender. Is like even here. So I don't know why, but Canada, we seem to be having like a more narrowing gap between like the expensive stuff and the cheap stuff. So you mentioned the Player series, right? Here, the Player Series, they go for about 1,600. So 1,600, and then you have the American, like some of the lower, the lower gauge, not gauge. What's the word I'm fucking looking for? But yeah, let's say the lower priced ones from the American ones are going to be like 2,200, 2,400. So you're looking at that gap, and you're thinking to yourself, like, maybe I should wait 2-3 paychecks and just come back and get the American one. Right? It's like at this point,
1,600 Canadian. That's like 1,060 euros. Are you kidding me? That's insane.
Yeah,
I'm just checking the
the conversion.
converter. Yeah. Wow.
And on top of that, we have another thing that impacts price here in Canada, which is the carbon tax. So apparently, taxing people because they use too much carbon really saves the planet. You know, that's brilliant.
That's
brilliant
the concept.
plan. No, don't plant more trees. You know, don't try to incentivize people to go to electric cars. Just tax them more, because that really fixes the fucking problem.
Yeah. 100%.
So anyways, exactly. That's had a huge impact on transport. So all the people driving all the big fucking trucks, and you got like the trains and all this shit. Well, they're all paying more for gas because they're using too much carbon. So they're paying more taxes for the carbon taxes. So we, the consumers, have to pay more because everything else is going up, right? So it's one of the effects of this tax on Canadians is that everything costs more. So as you mentioned before, music is more of a hobby if you consider it on every spectrum, because even if you're in a business, you're not playing in the same league as, let's say, a farmer who's selling eggs or milk, right? We're not dealing with the same numbers at all. One, he's guaranteed at least a little more than the guy making guitars to make a profit, because people eat. They need to eat. We don't need more guitars, right? Yeah. So when you go to the superstore, right now, like the average for, let's say, bacon, 500 grams of bacon is around like $8, and it can go to 16 for bacon. Milk is fucking expensive. Everything is like going up. So you have to expect, if you can't feed yourself, how the fuck are you going to buy gear? It doesn't make sense, right? If I can't afford to buy bacon, this is now a luxury item. Fucking olive oil in Canada is so expensive. It is stupid. Olive oil. Goddamn, we're talking like $13 for a liter of olive oil. Who the fuck is going to go buy a Gibson for $9,000? I don't know very many people that can afford it.
No, not many.
So sustaining this doesn't make sense. We can't sustain that. Eventually, people have to shut down the doors. It's just inevitable.
What I've noticed here is all the stuff, if you go to the supermarket, all the stuff that is like sort of seen as healthy is more expensive, and all the shit, that is like processed food remained at the same price, didn't even go up.
Same fucking thing here. Same thing here.
You want to buy fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, you got to pay up. Olive oil, same thing. The olive oil that we used to buy was like at 7 or something. Now it's like same thing, like 12 euros. So everything that and there's other stuff that they just throw at you. Like fucking Coca-Cola and whatnot.
So that really brings this conundrum here, especially for someone like me who got used to the European way of doing stuff for 4 years.
Yeah.
I come back here and I notice that you go into a music store, the clerks, they jump on you. And the first thing they ask you is, can I help you? Is there anything you're looking for? But they're saying it almost out of desperation. Like, please buy something. And then you look at the prices and you go, I can only afford strings. I'm sorry. That's all I can buy from you, right?
Yeah, but that's the effect, I mean, because if they, and I kind of remember the numbers of Long and McQuaid, they were actually pretty good. Like the numbers 2022 to 2023. And we can talk about this. I still have that issue of Music Trades where all that data is in. We can look at it in another episode, like in more depth. And there's like a top 50 retailer list in there, and Long and McQuaid were actually on the upper end of like having good numbers. So they were actually in the plus, but there were not many people in the plus. And obviously, if you work at a store and you judge by the figures that you do, at some point, if you can't bring the figures, if you can't bring the sales, you're gonna be out of a job. And that's why they're so afraid and sort of in fear that they might lose their job and kind of desperate to sell something. But obviously, and I wish that was the case everywhere, because sometimes I go somewhere and I really need help and I'm looking for someone to help me. If you go to the to what in Germany would be like Home Depot, we have a pretty big chain called Bauhaus here, and you feel like all these guys are escaping from you. They want to talk.
It's the same here. It's the same here. I can tell you why that is. I've worked at Home Depot. They don't train you. They don't teach you shit.
Nothing.
They just throw you on the fucking floor. So if you consider that a lot of people that work in there, they don't have the knowledge, and you're asking them about like specific screws or a specific tool and you don't know, and you're looking for your colleagues and they don't know, everyone's hiding in the back. There you go.
That's the thing. Usually if you find someone that works there who has a clue of what he's selling and what he's responsible for, like in the wherever he works, if it's like screws or tools or whatever, they usually come with that knowledge like beforehand. They arrived there and they were like, "Hey, do you have a job? I know everything about cutting tools. I know everything about drilling."
Yeah,
and but you have to have a lot of luck. You need to be really lucky to find one of these. If you can find them, great.
Could you imagine trying to imagine a music store like that where the employees weren't musicians and they didn't know shit, and you were looking for advice and they were all hiding behind amps and shit, and you're like, "Can anyone help me? I'm trying to find a Wampler. I'm going to ask my colleague," and then they take off and you're just standing there for like 30 minutes.
Sadly, I know a few stores that are exactly like this, especially bigger stores where you go in there and playing guitar is the only thing they can do, because because they think that's the only thing they need. And then a lot of these guys, they're not properly trained, and you go in there and if you don't have a clue about all of that stuff, maybe they can help you because they know the basics. But if it goes in depth, if you're really looking for something, or if you need help with something like complicated, like, I don't know, a complicated switching setup, like run via MIDI, ask them that. What is this M1D1 you're talking about?
M1D1.
MiDi? It's got MiDi?
Is that the character from Star Wars?
Yeah, it's M1D1.
That little one there?
No, his name is MiDi.
So that's going to be a topic for a next episode.
That's going to be a topic
Talking
for the next
about
episode.
Music stores and gear and where we're going in the future. That could be a fun topic.
Well, I have some numbers that I can bring to the table, and we can look at what's happened so far. And I have some pretty good understanding what happened so far this year. So
okay,
we can do that. We can kind of come up with a new sad episode.
Yeah, the keep everything you have, because at a certain point you're not going to be able to afford shit. So
exactly that.
God,
awesome!
What a message to deliver.
It was really great catching up with you.
Yep.
And we'll do a new episode very, very soon. And as always, if you like what we do and the content we create, the stuff we talk about, subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow us on Spotify or whatever sort of platform you use to consume podcasts and whatnot. And until the next time, we salute you. Cheers.
Cheers.